management. So, which is speaking about delivering HRM system and roles. So during our group discussion, we discussed that HR is planned through the process of strategic human resource management. And then we said that HRM is basically about how the employees are being employed and managed. Then we also said that HR is delivered through the HR architecture and systems. And so what is HR architecture? Basically, the HR architecture is basically the processes and the structure. Is about the organizational design, how that those strategy implemented will be carried out. That's what the HR architecture speaks about. Then also during our review in the chapter, we discovered that HR is not only about hiring and firing, that HR also has the aspect of the business side, the business need. So the sole purpose is for organization to achieve its needs through people. And so where do HR come in place? HR come in place to ensure that people are aligned with the business strategy. That's what HR do. So taking into account the HR architect, we talked about the HR strategy, which we also discussed last week. So the strategy are basically the action plan you intend to achieve as an organization in terms of your HR strategy, while the policies are like the guidelines that you intend to implement. Also, the HR practices is about managing and developing people, and the people in place here are the employees. Then also we spoke about HR activities. So there is the transformational activities and there's also the transactional activities. So basically, the transformational activities is concerned with developing organizational effectiveness and also the implementation of HR and business strategies. While the transactional side basically is about the development of the employees, their reward system, and employees' relation. Then we also spoke about the roles of HR. So HR as the business partner, HR as the innovator, HR as change agent. So if you are setting goals as an HR, your goals needs to be clear, and you have to give a reason on why you have to achieve all of those goals. Then you also, as an innovator, you also have to ensure that those goals fit into your strategy. You don't just set goals and means. Your goals have to fit with the organizational strategy. Your goals has to also fit with the culture of the organization. Then you also have to understand that things will not just fall in place, that you don't have to do things in a rush. Then you also have to know that even as an HR professional, you also need the line managers. All of those strategies that you already set to achieve, it's the line manager that will help you in carrying out those strategies that you have. Those strategies, the line managers will be the one to implement it to the employee. So even as an HR, you also have to play the role of the line manager. So we also talk about HR as a change agent and also HR as a business partner. So that's all from my end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Oluwashinwara. Is there anyone in your group who would still like to add to it? You still have 13 more minutes. Is there anyone who is willing and ready to share what they learned, what they understood from what we studied during the week? Because the idea really is when we come to class, we get less theoretical and let's begin to get more practical. Do you understand? So, is there any other person from group 5 who wants to contribute to what I said? Oluwashimara, you know members now?
Tommy.
Is Tommy on this call?
Tommy. Yes, he's on the call. Hello, Tommy, can you hear us? Okay, I think Solomon is trying to speak, but... Solomon, we can't hear you, but your audio is showing that you are trying to speak.
Solomon.
Okay, sir. So let me. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm good by what she said, sir.
What is it that she would like to be added?
Sir?
Is there anything she left out that you like to add?
I can't hear you. The network.
Okay, please check your end. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I can't. The network. I don't know.
Okay, Solomon, log out and join the meeting again.
Sir?
Log out of the meeting and join again.
Okay. I should leave, right, and come back.
Yes.
And rejoin.
And if Oshi, please go ahead.
Hello, sir. I can't hear you.
And if Oshi. Okay, so that we don't. Sorry, we're getting feedback from someone. Thank you. Okay. The idea about this week. And if Oshi, can you please mute? Okay. I guess it's better now. The idea behind this weekly review itself actually is to help us express what we learned while we did our own individual and group discussions. It's not just to read for the sake of it, and having something to study for the week and having a case study to also attend to, they are not bad in themselves. The case study is your practical hands-on experience about how real HR problems are solved. So the case study, sincerely, if you take it, go to an average organization, you see those problems happening there. And if I'm going to employ you as an HR manager in my company, you should have the capacity to solve some of these problems, because when you go for interview, practical questions will be asked about how do you resolve issues around performance management, how do you resolve issues around recruitment, how do you handle issues around massive employee turnover. And those are some of the things you get by paying attention to case studies or getting involved in syndicate exercises. So the idea really behind the case study is not because we want to get you busy. It's because we want you to know the real experience, have the real experience, not just to come to class and see. And like I said at the beginning, this is not the regular coaching program. Here, you are expected to talk because you know something. We want to know what you know, so that what you know can bless other members of the group, and at the same time, everybody can learn from one another. It's not a one-way learning arrangement. All right, Oluwaseun, is that okay for your group? Okay. Today, we are having.
Sir.
All right, that's fine. We are having a session on. Let me share my screen. And one thing I need you to know is that for today, I am not going to do a lot of theoretical explanations. I'm going to go into those things you have read, bring them into a more practical experience so that when you begin to see things, you are able to understand better. So today we're talking about delivering HR. The focus is on systems and roles. Then I put under there, I said, unlocking the HR practice treasures, because this real treasure in HR is in its systems and the roles. If you understand how to design systems and have roles effectively and clearly designed and defined, you realize that there will be no chaos. The reason we see chaos in organizations today is because you have someone who says, I am the admin manager, and the role of the admin manager overlaps with the role of the HR manager, which also overlaps with the role of operations manager. I don't know about you, but you will see some organizations where they have admin manager, they have operations manager, they have HR manager, and the question really is, at what point do their roles overlap? At what point are their roles unique? And so those are some of the things that as an HR person, you need to know how to set those things. Because when there is confusion or chaos in an organization, the first place they run to is HR. So HR is supposed to be the doctor in any organization. And that is where we are going to talk about today. So the next slide is, we move to chapter 3 of the book, focuses on the delivery of human resource management within organizations, particularly the systems and roles involved in HR delivery. Please pay attention to, we're interested in the systems and the roles involved in the delivery of human resource management. And this is a summary from the HRM delivery refers to the practical implementation and execution of human resource policies, strategies, processes, and practices within an organization. It encompasses the actions, systems, and roles involved in managing an organization's workforce effectively to achieve its strategic objectives. HRM delivery is a fundamental aspect of HRM that ensures human resource strategies are put into action to support the organization's overall goal. This is the explanation. Policies are statements of intent on behalf of made by an organization. Policies are statements of intent. This is what we want to do. That's what policies are for. Strategies are designed to advance policy provisions. Based on the policies that have been developed, strategies are developed to make sure that we come up with plans that helps us to achieve our statement of intent. That's our policy. Then when you develop the strategies or your plan, we come up with processes. I know we've talked about standard operating procedures. Some of us talk about flow charts. The reason we develop processes is to help us perform our functions effectively in a standardized way. There's a standardized way of getting things done. 1 minute, please. I want to be sure I'm recording this section. Okay, I'm recording this session. So, sorry for that break. So, processes are designed such that if Kayode is the one handling recruitment today, If for any reason Kayode asked to leave the organization or Kayode was transferred to another function, say compensation and benefit or reward management, whoever is coming to take over the recruitment function from Kayode should not have to struggle to go through the processes. Why? Because we have developed a standardized process or procedure to go about things. And practices. What are practices? In most times, practices are expressions given to policy provisions. They are not always 100% according to the policies. And I need you to pay attention to that. That's why in organization, you hear, na so we dey do am. Na so we dey do am does not mean they are breaking policies. But they are saying that although the policy says this, we follow the policy to 70%. And the remaining 30%, we use our own initiative. We're not breaking the policy, but we're also doing something that is not articulated in the policy the way it's done. And except you want to deceive yourself, we have that practice in every organization. At that point, in most times you hear, use your initiative. At that point, we hear, oh, be creative. At that point, we hear, oh, be innovative. What your manager is saying to you at that point, he says, this is what the policy says. The policy will not tell you in nitty-gritty, or no process will tell you in nitty-gritty how to handle all problems. So some problems, the way they've been handled over time, may not even be documented in an SOP. Those become practices, organizational practices that are unique to either teams, departments, or certain functional areas in organization. That's one thing you need to know. HRM delivery deals with all these things. Once you can put all these things together, we are doing HR. So HR, as it were, is about 30% codified and about 70% uncodified. Codified in that you have your policies, you have your SOPs, those things are there. But 70% uncodified because there are certain decisions you need to make on the spot. For example, you are involved in executive recruitment. You just realize that there are certain things that are not written down, but at the interview level, while engaged in executive recruitment, you begin to have some conversations and some agreements begins to come up on the spot. And as HR, the management begins to look towards you to say, okay, this decision, how will it play out? And at that point, HR is expected to become the coach, even to the management, by saying that, okay, this statement, yes, it sounds good, but it can't run. That is why I said HR is about 70% uncodified, and we need to pay attention to that. What are the components of HRM delivery? Now, don't forget we're talking about policies, strategies, processes, and practices. Now, what are the key components of HRM delivery? Number one, you have HRM systems and technology. That is utilizing human resource information systems. Some of us mentioned it during our group meetings because I was at your group meetings briefly. And other HR technology solutions to streamline HR processes. I saw what the groups that have submitted their case study analysis. A lot of emphasis was placed on HR systems and strategies. And it helps you to streamline HR processes such as recruitment, payroll preparation, payroll management, performance management, employee record keeping. In fact, the most visible and the most immediate benefits of HR systems and technology is that employee record keeping or data management. And it's something that everybody needs to pay attention to. So these systems help HR professionals manage data efficiently and improve the accuracy of HR-related tasks. It also helps you handle your data in a more secure manner. However, we will get to a point where we begin to talk about data protection regulation and how you need to be careful so that somebody does not breach your data. Because once your data is breached, then your data can be used against the organization when we get there. So you have the HR systems and technology. You have the HR roles and responsibilities. That is defining and assigning roles within the HR function. Now, that is why you see, oh, I'm a payroll specialist. Oh, I'm an employee relations specialist. At that point, you realize that in your HR, roles are assigned to individual members of the team. Although there are some teams that what they do is they make sure that everybody is a general. And when everybody is a generalist, what it does in a team is it creates chaos, because nobody is responsible for anything specifically. But over time, at every given time, somebody must be held primarily responsible for certain functions within your team. That is where this one comes in, including HR generalists, specialists, and business partners. We'll still talk about them later. Each role has distinct responsibilities, and HR professionals collaborate to address various HR functions, such as recruitment, employee relations, benefits administration, training, and development. If you are the HR manager in your organization, and you are the only person running the HR team, I'll tell you the truth off the top of my head. You can never be strategic. You would only be an operational person. You always put out fire, because you will literally have no time to do any other thing except addressing issues that are raised by people. Can you still hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. So we need to know that you need to properly structure your HR team in such a way that some people, in some teams, because you are not so large, you can put recruitment and benefits administration together, because the output of the benefits administrator is the input for the recruitment person, because that's where the salary structure comes in. And the output of the recruitment person is also the input for the benefits administrator, because when you employ new people, you transfer their data to. So in some teams, because you don't have a large team, you can put some of these functions together, but someone must be specifically responsible for certain functions in your team. Now, that is what this is saying. Then the C part talks about HR process management, designing, implementing, and continuously improving HR processes to ensure they are efficient and aligned with organizational objectives. In this case, that's why continuous improvement must be your watchword. You have your HR process manual or your HR SOP booklet, whatever you call it in your organization. You must make sure that you keep enhancing the content of this document. You keep improving them, and as you develop an SOP for payroll administration, don't just develop it and document it. Develop it and implement it. By implementing it, you see where the problems are. Why do we keep having problems with our monthly payroll? Why are there always errors? By the time you sit down, you begin to deliberate on it. You know where the problem is coming from. And the moment you identify the problem, you come up with a plan to mitigate that problem. Then that's where you begin to talk about continuous improvement or quality improvement initiatives. And of course, you have PDSA cycle and all those things, different tools to do quality improvement. But you need to build quality improvement into what you do. Design a solution, implement the solution, identify a problem in the solution, and keep enhancing the solution. So the SOPs are some, or procedural manuals are some of those tools that helps you to maintain this balance. Outsourcing and shared services, we're going to talk about this. That's evaluating the option of either outsourcing certain HR functions or establishing shared services. Some of us work in places where our learning and development functions are managed from another location, but by staff of the same company but operating from another location, while your benefits or payroll management is resident in another location. Members of the same team, that is like shared services. But when you outsource to someone that is a third party, that is not an integral part of your organization as employees. But we'll still talk more about them. HR metrics and analytics, leveraging data and analytics to measure the effectiveness of your HR function. It's not enough to say, oh, but we have spent so much time, we employ people. You need to track. How long does it take for us to hire? Now be careful. When it comes to tracking your recruitment KPIs, especially time to hire and time to fill, you begin to hear that, oh, the time to fill, the global benchmark is 45 days. And time to hire, the acceptable benchmark is 30 days. Be careful. You need to understand the uniqueness of your organization. If your organization is such that the management does not respond on time, you need to be able to design a more realistic target for yourself. You are the one that will set the target for yourself. So if you set unrealistic target for yourself, you will keep failing. So you must sit down and be practical. All the KPIs you are setting that you want to measure and analyze, be sure they are realistic to your environment. The fact that 45 days time to fill and 30 days time to hire is okay for me in my organization does not mean it is okay for you. And it doesn't mean that the time to hire for junior staff can be the same as the time to hire for executive recruitment. Please pay attention. For executive recruitment, my time to hire may be 90 days. That's 3 months. Because it is not easy to fill executive roles. And when you find them, most executives, when you find them, they have the clause of 3 months period wherever they are working from. So if you maintain the same indicator for entry-level staff that don't need any qualification, that are plenty in the market, and you use the same indicator for those who are very few, who are top executive, you would always fail. So you need to also learn how to isolate. You need to identify who your outliers are and be able to isolate them and analyze them independently. We'll still talk more when we talk about HR metrics. There's a whole session, I think the last class of this program is on HR metrics and analytics, and someone who is a certified business analysis professional will take that. I've worked with him and it's good. Then we have HR service quality, focusing on improving high quality HR services to employees and stakeholders. HR professionals aim to meet employee needs, expectations, and satisfaction by delivering timely and responsive HR support. Be careful. When we say we meet the expectation, it's not that every time they say, I want a salary increase, they get it. No. It simply means that every time they say they want a salary increase, we're able to sit them down, walk them through the process, and they understand that, oh, okay, salary increase is not realistic at this point because of A, B, C, D. The moment they were able to bring them to understanding, then you have met the expectations and they're able to go. So it's not that, oh, every time I want more salary, they get it. That's how we meet the expectation. No, that's not how we meet the expectation. We meet the expectation by helping them manage the expectation and showing them the realistic parts of what they are doing. Then the last one, HR delivery models, which we'll talk about, determining the optimal HR delivery model for the organization structure and strategic goals. This may involve choosing between centralized, decentralized, or hybrid HR delivery models, depending on the organization's size, complexity, and geographic spread. In essence, HRM delivery is the hands-on. You know, I used this word earlier when we were talking about case study. Hands-on execution of HR strategies and practices that drive the organization's workforce-related functions. Let me tell you, a lot of HR professionals, I'll tell you what our problems are. One of our problems is we have very good documentation. We have developed these things. We have gone online. We have researched. We have gone for trainings. We came back, we developed very lovely documents that if they go anywhere in the world, they will be appreciated. But we don't implement them. But the stage we are, until you begin to execute what you have documented, you can't deliver quality HR service to anybody. And you need to know that, and you need to pay attention. So I am challenging you. You would rather have just one plan and execute the plan effectively than have 10 plans and execute none. The reason most management don't take us seriously as HR professionals is that we talk a lot and we implement little or nothing. Implementation and execution is what makes you a good HR professional. The other one, let's move to what are HR systems. We said this part explores the various HR systems that organizations use to manage HR processes. And this includes, of course, we say HRIS, HRMS, and any other technology that helps you to streamline your HR tasks. You see, you will have seen in some places, they say human resource information system. And in some other places, you hear human resource management system. and they've been used interchangeably. And I need to pay attention that, yes, they've been used interchangeably. But please pay attention to these words. In HRIS, the I stands for information. In HRMS, the M stands for management. Any system that does not have the analytics and capacity built into it is merely an information system. It is a management system provided it begins to give you insight into certain indicators, into certain data trends. That's when it becomes a management tool. Management is simply your ability to make decisions from what is available to you. I just needed you to know that at this point, that the information system merely provides you a system to run your processes, and it gives you information. But you see, in the era of analytics, the moment you begin to deliberately build analytics into the system, it becomes a tool. Then you can begin to say it's an HR management system. But most of us think because we can upload employees' data, they can interact through the employee self-service portal, we can say they are the same thing. Then at the end of this class, I will show you some HR systems. There are some that I have deployed for a few clients of mine, for those, and I can bet it with you that with about $300 to $500, you can deploy an HR system that helps you to handle your basic HR functions without you having to break the bank. You don't need to do 10 million projects and all those things. But information is power. So I'll show you some of those things live. They are on my domain. So they are there live. It's not that, oh, okay, maybe they will come. No, and I'll show them to you later. What is a system? A system is a set of principles or procedures according to which something is done, an organized scheme or method. And you can see this machine by my side. In secondary school, for those of us who did sciences, or who did, of course, in junior secondary school, we did integrated science. That's what you call the fulcrum, or the fulcrum. Is the simple explanation of machine that was shown to us, the pulley system in secondary school. That, oh, you put something at a lower point here, then there's a flat board that is resting on something that is a bit elevated, and when you apply a little force from the other side, it lifts the heavy load on this other side, and this is the load that you would not have been able to carry as a person. But because you have that simple machine, by applying a little pressure on this side, it helps you to lift it there. That's what a system is. A system is supposed to give you a leverage. A system is supposed to give you the capacity to do what you could have done individually. So this image is a simple explanation of what a system is. Then HR management systems play a vital role in managing an organization's workforce data, improving efficiency and supporting informed decision making. And I'll tell you, one of the things it does on the long run is it saves time and it saves money. How does it save time? The time it will take for you to fill form for about 10, 20 people is the same time it will take the 10 of them to log on and sit on your HR system, and at the same time, within few minutes, all their data entered into your system. So, and how does it save money? The paper you will consume, and you help us to begin to stop the deforestation, because the lower a demand for paper consumption, the lower the number of trees that they will need to fell in order to produce papers for us. But what are the key aspects of a good HR system? If you see a system that has this feature, trust me, it is good for you. Data management, ability to create people's accounts, document their dates of birth, their work history, and all those things. If it has a recruitment and applicant tracking function, it may not be robust, but you should have it to a great extent. Your ability to onboard people and to onboard people into the system and out of the system. Payroll and compensation management. This is the most technical part of any HR system you want to run in Nigeria. And the reason is simple. The Nigerian tax regime is a very peculiar one. is a very unique one. And in most cases, most systems are designed or developed by people from the Western countries who are not familiar with how our payee or our income tax act is structured. And because they are not familiar with it, they do something that is okay for the environment. So in most systems you see, the payroll management of it becomes a bit chaotic because it's not able to calculate the tax effectively. But apart from that, of course, you're able to input your salary details, you're able to process your payroll. Then time and attendance machine. There are some systems that allows for you to plug in a biometric device into the system. So your attendance data is captured automatically because it's connected. And for some, you need to input your attendance details manually. Someone needs to sit on the system and input it manually. But once a system has the function, whether it's manually imputed or it can be plugged into a biometric device, is good for you. Performance management. Most of the HR management systems that we have in town at the moment, most of them use most of these star ratings. But the ones that have the full-fledged performance management functions or modules are mostly focused on performance management. One of the things that Seamless HR, most of us must have seen or heard of Seamless HR. One of the things Seamless HR has working for it is that its performance management module is very robust. But Seamless HR is expensive and an average company in Nigeria cannot afford it. Then your training and development ability to document training details, create training inputs. It doesn't mean the training will happen on it. Then you should have an employee self-service and a manager self-service. Simply what this is simply saying is that when an employee logs in, there's an account for an employee. When he logs in, there's a limit to what the employee can do. When a manager logs in, the manager has more leverage and more privileges than the employee. Then reporting and analytics, I talked about this a short while ago. It's ability to report and analyze it effectively is critical. That from the dashboard, you should be able to see the data and begin to make some ideas. Then compliance and security. How secure is the system? And does it comply with applicable laws? In Nigeria, we have the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation, NDPR. If your company is operating beyond Nigeria, you have the GDPR. Those are things that you need to pay attention to. There are details that you are not permitted to obtain in European countries, and you need to pay attention. You must comply across board. Then integration. How easy is it to integrate into? Probably you have an existing system. Then we'll talk about the portals. Then mobile access. If it has the mobile version of it or is very responsive on mobile phone, it will be a very good one. But above all, it must be a people-centered system. It must be individual-oriented, that when I log in as a person, I should be able to engage with it. It should be future-oriented and all those things. So these are just some of the features for a good HR management system. Then this is the HR system that you also see in the textbook. Here in the textbook, the HR system is a collection of interrelated and jointly supportive HR activities and processes, which together enable HRM goals to be achieved. Now, in the book, you have from the HR human resource management system, you have human resource philosophies. The human resource philosophies are the underlying assumptions that guides our HR practice as an organization. Then from the philosophies, you come up with your strategies. It informs your strategies, your policies, and your practices. Then under there, you see organization, people resourcing, learning and development, reward management, employee relations. Now, these are the things that form the totality of the HR function. And you need to get familiar with them. You begin to talk about organizational design, begin to think about how to develop the organization itself. You begin to think about job stroke role design. And for most of you, you may need to do a bit of study on how to design jobs. Designing jobs is just more than the job description, as it were. You need to learn what is called job analysis. You need to read a bit more on job analysis. And job analysis, for every detailed job analysis you conduct, you come up with two outcomes. You have your job description and you have your job specification. Job description describes the job to be done. Job specification talks about the person, the qualities, the competencies the person that will fill the role must have to succeed on the job. Okay, so we've talked about this. It's still the same thing. Now, this, I just decided to do this so that it will help you to understand better. System versus process. You know, we've been using these words. A system is the overall thing. Now, we're talking about HR management as a system and HR management as a process. So HR as a system is the overall, thing or a core element you are looking to have or implement in your business that helps your business run effectively. That's a system. A process, on the other hand, is the collection of all the things you do in order to make any given system work most efficiently. So you see that the system itself talks about effectiveness, while the process talks about efficiency. Please pay attention to it. A system focuses on effectiveness. A process focuses on efficiency. Now, effectiveness, you know, you talk about doing the right things and doing things right. And you need to pay attention to the fact that processes are enhancers for systems. Processes are designed to achieve systems and to accomplish what the system has been designed to do. Processes are step-by-step actions of how you do things. That is the task in your business. That is getting from point A to Z. The systems are the tools, the programs you design to manage these processes. In other words, what we're saying is, in HR as a discipline, HR is a collection of subsystems. You see, training and development is a subsystem. Employee relations is a subsystem. Recruitment, it's a subsystem. So, and for recruitment, there are processes involved in the recruitment system. For learning and development, there are processes involved. That is the essence of this slide, for you to know that there's a difference between a system and a process. But a system is a collection of processes, because processes are designed to enhance the accomplishment of what the system is designed to do. Then you will have an example of HR processes also here. Then I said, let's roll up our sleeves. Where we are, let's just look at a bit of a system in HR. And the system I want us to quickly look at is performance management system. And I know that a good number of people have issues with this aspect of HR. So I just felt, let's do a bit of practical from here and we move on from there. Now, what you see here is what technically you see in some writings, they call it the performance management system, or some places they call it the performance management cycle. Whatever it is, these two images you are seeing on the screen achieve the same purpose. But let's walk you through it. The first step is you plan. After you have designed, you have established organizational goals and values. In establishing a performance management system, the first thing you do is to plan. What do you do in the planning stage? You set SMART objectives. I know you are familiar with SMART. SMART simply means it must be simple, it must be measurable, it must be achievable, it must be realistic, and it must be time-bound. So you must those objectives that are simple, that are measurable, so they must have metrics, that are achievable, given the timeline you are given to them, that are realistic in nature, and that are time-bound. If you are setting any plan or objectives and such don't adhere to this SMART ideology, then it can never be. You can't say you have KPIs because it will not be measurable. Most times, go to your organizations and see where we even claim we have performance goals or objectives. Go and see what we call performance objectives. You hear things like to perform excellently well on the job. Excuse me. What is the measure? What is the yardstick you use to measure excellence? If you can't reduce that your excellence to figures on a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 100%, if you can't reduce it to number, then you can't measure it. If you can't measure it, then it's not achievable. Then if it's not achievable, it's not realistic, regardless of how much time you give to it. So when you set SMART objectives, you agree with the person. You agree personal development plan. You have set the goals for the person. You need to begin to find out, what do you need to achieve this goal? And the person says, oh, for me to achieve this goal, I need you to get me this software. I need you to get me this work tool. Because if you set the objectives and you don't give the required support, you have not positioned the person to succeed. You have positioned the person to fail from the beginning. So performance management is not just about setting objectives. It's also about giving the support required for the staff to be able to achieve the goals that have been set. After all, you are not setting the goals to punish the person. You are setting the goals so that the organization can advance. Then you need to update role profile. The moment you have set the objectives and you understand the personal development plan, you go back to the role profile. And you're able to say, based on the nature of what we are doing for this season, this role profile needs to change. For example, in those days, you need to know how to be able to enter documents into ledger manually as an accounting person to be able to function. Today, you need to know how to enter into Sage, into QuickBooks. So you realize that the same job, but the role profile in the 80s and the role profile today for an accountant, you realize that has changed. So such must happen in your organization as well. Then after planning, what do? You act. Now, what do? Achieve objectives, carry out role, implement personal development plan. At this point, the acting point, what you are doing is you are giving ongoing support to the staff. At any point, any challenges, you provide the support the person requires to be able to achieve the goal. Of course, the person is acting out the role that has been defined for that time. Then, in the process, you begin to look at the person's personal development plan. What are the things that needs to happen? What are the trainings the person requires within this period to be able to do the role well? Those are the things you begin to do here. Then you track. When you track progress, like I said, it's an ongoing thing. You don't wait till if your appraisal cycle is every 3 months, you don't wait till the end of the 3rd month. No, you do weekly check-in with the person. You give regular feedback. When the person tells you what obstacles the person is faced with, you come in to help the person. For example, maybe the person is having a challenge with another manager from another department, and that is hindering the person's capacity to fulfill or achieve the objectives you have set. You step in as the manager. You take that barrier out of the person. That is what it means to track. You give ongoing engagement and regular feedback. Then, when you come to the review stage is actually where you are now saying, let us do performance appraisal. In some places, you call it performance review. In some places, they call it performance assessment. Whatever it is, the idea is to say, let us check what progress we have made between the time we set the goals and where we are today. And you begin to review what achievements the person has made within that period. You identify the learnings the person has had. You identify the challenges the person is faced with. You identify the pitfalls, what the person was not able to achieve for that period, and ask the question, what were the reasons or what were the responsible factors for the person not to have fulfilled it. Then you agree on actions. This action also plugs into the personal development plan. You say, okay, you are not able to achieve this, because you do not have this particular skill set. So we develop a training plan. You'll be exposed to this training within the next 2 months. So those are the things you document in the personal development plan, and it's a continuous cycle. If you look at the table beside it, set your performance plan, then from your performance plan, after you have defined your performance plan, establish performance management goals. From there, put in place a performance review system. What is the system? Those are some of the things I've talked about. How do you want to review this person's system? So we want to have one-on-one, weekly one-on-one. Then you can deliberately have on the spot one-on-one. The person just messed up with an assigned task. You don't wait for till tomorrow to give the feedback. Give the feedback now. Give the feedback immediately. Then every manager, every one of us need to learn the skill of how to give feedbacks without antagonizing the person. Most times when you give feedback, people feel talked down on because it is antagonistic in nature. But when you give feedback, it's meant to encourage them. Then ongoing employee performance management is a continuous cycle. This is a simple illustration I saw online, and I felt, oh, okay, it could give you, they broke it down into phases. The phase 1 is developing and planning performance. Phase 2 is managing and reviewing performance. Phase 3 is rewarding performance. You can actually adopt something like this. This is very simple. In the phase 1, you outline development plans. Then you set objectives. Then you get employee commitment. In phase 2, under the managing and reviewing performance, you assess against objectives. You are assessing the actual against the expected. Then in the process, you give feedback. That's why performance management is a dialogue. It's not the manager sitting somewhere and feeling everything and saying, I've assessed you. No. It's a dialogue that the manager engages the employee and gives feedback. And the employee is also allowed to give feedback. Because normally in sane clients, you cannot complete a performance appraisal process without the feedback and the sign-off of the employee. The employee must sign off to say, yes, we discussed this thing and I agree with you that true, that is the reality. Then it's your opportunity to provide coaching. Then you document everything that has happened. Then you move on to the next one. Then how do you reward performance, personal development for gaps that have been identified, or individual development plan for those who have been identified to be talents that are fit to go into your succession plan strategy. Then, is there any link between performance and pay? For example, in some places, they say if you score between 75% and 84%, you get 10% pay rise. If you score between 85 and 95, you get 15%. If you get above 95, you get 35%. That is linking pay to performance. Then what are the results of the performances? And in most cases, what actually is the overall impact of this? So if you want to do a performance, I don't care what tool you are using for your performance management system. The most important thing is your goals and objectives must be very clear. And they must be smart. They must be measurable and realistic. You don't bring someone that just in 6 months, the person was able to make a sales of 2 million naira. You are now saying for the next 6 months, I'm giving you a sales of 20 million naira. It's not realistic. Because if it took the person 6 months to make 2 million naira in sales, why do you think the last 6 months the person will make 20 million naira? Except there are unfinished businesses from the last cycle that you think you yield. Even at that, it is better you give the person a realistic target and the person is able to surpass your target. But we must make it very smart. So we need to keep having engagement with line managers on this performance management system. It is your role as HR, but you do not own the entire process. Line managers have their roles to play because they are the ones that must set the goals and objectives and discuss with their people. Then HR can come in as a counterbalancing power to sit with them and understand and get the sign-off of everybody, then become something you are running against. Then this document just walks you through how it's done. Like this is what someone did in an organization. I said HR sets up initial performance record in their system. The moment it is done, you see, email notification is received by the supervisor. Supervisor creates performance plan on manager self-service. Now, this is just an entire process that is worked through in a system. And this process can literally help you see how it works. Then supervisor creates and certifies performance plan on manager self-service. That leads to supervisor and employee discuss the performance plan. So like I said, you don't finalize on the performance plan until that engagement has happened with the staff. Then after the conversation, employee reviews and certifies performance plan on employee self-service. I told you performance appraisal is not complete without employee sign-off. Then supervisor certifies performance plan. So this actually walks you through. The next phase is supervisor completes and certifies performance review on manager self-service. Email notification is sent to employee. Now, employee certifies performance plan on employee self-service. You just begin to realize that it flows from HR to the supervisor, supervisor to employee, employee back to supervisor, the supervisor back to employee, and ends with HR. That is performance management. That way, everybody is carried along and nobody is victimized or witch-hunted. And in most cases, we encourage you, keep a journal of engagement with your staff. You can design a tool in your company for managers to use to say, look, I have designed this tool. Keep weekly record of your performance engagement, performance management engagement with your staff, and document it. It helps everybody to document. And this is another way of doing it. I just brought these images out so that you can see how people do it, setting and communicating performance standards, measuring standards, comparing standards, discussing results, and taking corrective standards. This is a performance management process, and it's something that every one of us needs to understand. It says HR systems provide organizations with a centralized and efficient way to manage your related tasks, reduce administrative overhead, improve data accuracy, and enhance workforce management. They are crucial tools for modern HR departments seeking to support strategic decision-making and create a positive employee experience. That's the idea behind HR systems. So they are both technology and also they are practices, systems that are established and you work on them. It is what you have on ground that you transfer to technology to help you enhance. If you don't have it designed already, transferring it to technology can be chaotic. Let's quickly just talk about HR roles. Yes, we've talked about HR as a change agent, HR as a business partner, and all those things. But I just want to come very straight. I want to look at it from the standpoint of HR generalist, HR specialist, then what HR managers or directors also do, so that we understand. Let's bring it home and let's begin to see what exactly does my role expect. And before I go on, I need you to please note something for sure. Most people start as HR specialists. If you have a well-structured organization, when you get to the organization, they say, okay, just sit in charge of administrative part of HR. That is, just keep filing documents, keep putting things inside the document. As information comes in, file it and all that. And from there, it moves to, okay, coordinate recruitment. The moment recruitment is your own, you are a recruitment specialist. It is only in very few organizations that you see someone who is starting from HR, from afresh, suddenly becomes a generalist, does everything, does recruitment, does training, does everything. But the easiest way for you to get into HR is to be a specialist. Pick a key functional area, build your skills around that functional area. Because even organizations that don't look like they have a system or such systems actually operate them unconsciously. So generally, a role is a person's place or seat on a team, while responsibilities are the duties or functions and tasks assigned to a role. The standard criteria for creating a job description looks like this. Seat position description. That is an overview of the seat's role within the organization and its function, tasks, and responsibilities. What it simply means is that the role, in most cases, is your job title. And your responsibilities are those duties, those functions, those tasks that you perform day in and day out. So as a comp and ben specialist, what you do day in, day out will be different from what a recruitment person does, recruitment specialist, and will be different from what an L&D specialist does on a daily basis. But while you are a recruitment specialist, I always encourage people, put your eye into what the L&D specialist is doing, because you won't always just be that, except you are not thinking about growing to become an HR manager in the nearest future. But if you are going to become an HR manager, you must be good, very good in at least 3 functional areas of HR. At least 3. And the 3 most critical, you have recruitment and selection, you have learning and development, and you have performance management. In most systems, even the payroll administration is not resident with HR. In most systems, finance plays a whole lot of those functions. So as an HR manager, you must be able to do recruitment and selection very well, L&D very well, and please, those are things that when you are doing something, put your eye into what someone else is doing in your team. Offer to help. By offering to help, you would learn from them. What do HR generalists do? 3 core things they do: recruitment and selection, employee relations, benefit administrations, policy development, performance management, training and development. So they do everything. They do everything. Under recruitment and selection, you have the post job openings and manage the recruitment. They conduct interviews and screen candidates. They manage onboarding and orientation of new hires. Sorry, I can hear some noise. Okay, it's off. Let me ask. Okay, I think I'll come to that. Then under employee relations, you handle grievances and disputes. These are, or what you call employee conflicts. Then you promote a positive work environment. Anything that will enhance a positive work environment is the role of the employee relations person. So then you conduct exit interviews and analyzing turnover data. There. Now, if you want to be a good employee relations person, you must be a people person. You don't get easily irritated. And you must be someone who is not always biased, because when you want to resolve disputes, you can't afford to take sides, even if your friend is involved. You must learn to be very objective. And as HR professional, objectivity must be your watchword. You can't overlook it. You can't. I have had to sit at panels to investigate very close friends of mine. And I don't know whether it's in this class, maybe during the first week, that I said I have had to terminate a very close person to me. And for 2 weeks, his letter was ready. We were talking, and the day I was to give him the termination letter, around 6:30 a.m. that morning, we were still planning to do something together a week after that day. But as at the 6:30 a.m. we were talking, I knew that he was going. And I could not tell him because my role will not allow me to say it. Because in trying to say it, number one, he can go behind you and betray you and go and tell someone to say, why do you want to sack me now? And you lose your job. Number two, even if you don't lose your job, the management will lose confidence in you. And the moment the management loses confidence in you as the HR manager, you are in trouble. And you will be seen as someone who cannot handle it. And by the time I sat him down and I was giving him the letter, he ended up, he said, thank you, Mr. Johnson. But there were people who said, look, Johnson is a wicked guy. He knew they were going to sack his guy and he did not tell him. My job will not permit me to get personal around some things. And you need to know, yes, you want to be a good boy, you want to be a good lady, but please, your job requires the highest level of discretion. You don't say everything. And when you are investigating cases of criminal allegations against even your friends, even when you are gisting, you are not allowed to talk about it. That is a professional requirement. You don't know how to hold on to information, you can't do HR. Because if you don't handle information properly, you can put your organization in trouble. So these are the roles of an HR generalist. Like some people say, HR generalist is Bobo Tibo, he does everything. That's what they are, HR generalists. And those are the people that are most suitable for HR manager role. Because he will be able to put his eye in everything. So you are the moment you become a generalist, you have become a very experienced HR person. Then we have HR specialists. For some, they are compensation and benefit specialists. They design and administer compensation and reward programs. They conduct salary surveys and analyze compensation trades. What I have found out in Nigeria is those who call themselves comp and ben specialists don't know how to conduct survey. But if you want to be a comp and ben person, it's not enough for you to have a salary structure that has been designed for you to implement. You must also do your survey, do your research to enhance what has been given to you. At what point do you determine that our salary is no longer competitive in the market? Those are things that a comp and ben person does. Training and development specialist, of course, you know what the person does. The person should both have the capacity to facilitate trainings and also have the capacity to design training programs. You see here, he must design training materials and programs, deliver training sessions or arranging external trainings, evaluate the effectiveness of training initiatives. Now, there are people that work with me that at the end, we gather survey from you, we tell you, fill the attendance form. Then at the end of every class, we also check what did we do right, what could we have done, what were the feedbacks. Then you have the recruitment specialists. All they do is to go and look for people and create a seamless process to bring people into the organization. The employee relations specialist, specializing in handling complex employee relations issues, investigation, and conflict resolution. Then now we have HR analytics specialists. Those are people that takes your data and they convert your data to formats that makes it easy for you to make informed decisions. Then we have HR business partner. I know we've said this a lot. The first role of an HR business partner is strategic alignment. That is aligning HR strategies with overall organizational goals. Providing HR input into strategic decision making. So you know these guys, they sit at the top, they sit somewhere close to the management, making input into what management is trying to do in line with HR consideration. Talent management, identifying high potential employees and developing talent pipelines. Now, here you are beginning to talk about succession planning. So here, succession planning is what we're talking about. Advising on succession planning and career development. So you need to know, and the truth is the HR manager must have all this. The business partner is just responsible for a number of people. If you know people who have worked in MTN, they have HR business partners for the engineering teams. So they have for different teams. So you are an HR business partner over a small team, but the HR manager may be the manager of a whole lot of HR business partners. A whole lot of HR business partners reporting to an HR manager, depending on how the place is structured. Then they also are responsible for change management, leading change initiatives and facilitating communication between management and employees during transitions. For example, when COVID happened, a lot of decisions had to be made. And those decisions had to be coordinated by someone. Where I worked at the time COVID happened, HR was at the center of it all. And everyone who worked with me then knew that we were in for it. And the reason is simple. We had never experienced COVID before. COVID led to several changes to work arrangements, to how meetings are coordinated, how trainings are delivered. And you need to keep having communications, because it is only communication that helps you to obtain people's buy-in. Because when you don't have people's buy-in, then at the end of the day, all you have done is a waste of time. In fact, where I worked at that time, at some point, we needed to take pay cuts. And the first recommendation that came to me from the management, I was against it. Because the first recommendation that came to me was that we needed to downsize. We needed to sack 25% of our staff strength. And I said, no, we're not going to sack. What sacking the 25% give us in savings, I took an on-the-spot decision that we would rather give you that value back by opting for pay cuts. And what we did with my team then was to say, you know what, the pay cut is not going to be uniform. We're not going to say everybody goes for 25%. No. Those who were lower had about 10%, and the higher it goes, the more you are in to let go. What was the reason for that? Number one, if I had sacked 25%, I would still have my job. But the questions are, when we come back to normal job, I will need to recruit again. Those 25% will not be available for me to recruit. Even if I want to recruit them, they may not be willing to come. If I have to recruit another 25%, we have to retrain them for them to get into the system. It begins to affect our culture as well. So, at a glance, the implications of letting 25% go just for like 6 months and coming back. So what we did was, we had pay cut, and we said in the first instance, let's have pay cut for the first 6 months. Eventually, we reverted to full pay after 3 months, thereabout. But nobody lost their job. And people, by the time I started engaging with managers, I said, guy, if we're to go for pay cut, you don't know who is going to be sacked or who is not going to be sacked. So everybody instantly saw it that, look, I could be one of the people to be sacked if we're going for a pay cut. And instantly, everybody said, you know what, okay, we don't mind the pay cut. And the moment the earnings of the place began to come back, then we reverted to full pay, and everybody was happy. Now that's a change management situation. So a business partner is majorly involved, but please begin to build these skills for yourself as well. The fact that it's as a title business partner does not mean it is only. These are just regular job descriptions for these roles. Then, of course, they have HR metrics and analytics, using data to assess HR effectiveness, make informed decisions, reporting on key HR metrics and trends. This has become everybody's job. Because if you are a recruitment specialist, you must also keep track of your metrics and trends and also analyze and make recommendations on them. So every one of us must be metrics professional. Forget whatever your role is. Of course, consultation, serving as a strategic advisor to business leaders, providing guidance on HR best practices and legal compliance. Don't forget, we have said it's not just best practices, it's best fit. We talked about that. Of course, HR manager is the overall boss of everybody, or director, depending on what the title is called, wherever you are. But at that level, the HR manager or director is more concerned with leadership and strategy, overseeing the HR department and setting the strategic direction, managing HR budgets and resources. Policy development and compliance. It develops policies that are in compliance with applicable laws, legislations of the land. There are more than 15 laws in Nigeria that are HR related. And a director and HR manager must be conversant with at least 80% of them to be able to lead the organization in a direction that will not put them in trouble. Then workforce planning, identifying staffing needs and developing workforce strategy. At what point do you determine we have too many staff? At what point do you determine we don't have enough? That is where you begin to do your workforce planning. Managing organizational change and restructuring. For example, I got to a place, when I got there were 3 people in HR, and one of them was doubling as HR manager. So when I came in, the person was removed, and I had 2 people. And these 2 people did not really have any formal training in HR. One of them was was a PA, a secretary that was to be sacked, and they moved to HR. So when I got in there and I began to look at the volume, we had about close to 400 staff, and there were these 2 people working with me who really are not grounded in HR. They are just used to paperwork. And I just got to a point, I said, you know what, for me to really be able to deliver on what you brought me in to do, I need 7 people to work with me. And people told me, no, it's not going to be possible. I said, look, it's either we want to work or we don't want to work. And eventually, over time, we began to grow. And I said, okay, don't worry, we'll bring in interns, we'll bring in NYSC. But we achieved that number at that time. Though they are not all full staff, but at least somebody is able to do something. And it freed me some time to be able to think and do some strategic thing. At some point, we conducted workforce planning and we're able to say, okay, this department is not enough. Oh, this department is too much. They can't be this much. It has to be deliberately done. Employee engagement and culture. The greatest promoter of culture is the HR manager or director. If you said we have a culture of mutual respect, the HR director or manager cannot afford to be someone who disrespects people. So culture is a way of life. And the best ambassador, culture ambassador in the organization is the HR manager or director. Enhancing employee engagement and satisfaction. If as the HR manager you are not approachable, how will members of your team be approachable? And if your members of your team are not approachable, what are you saying to people? Then legal and ethical compliance. Are your policies and your practices in compliance with legal provisions? And ethically, are you on point? These are 4 major roles I want you to pay attention to. That is, let me go back. The HR generalist role, you do everything. HR specialist role, you focus on the functional area of HR. The business partner, yes, you literally do everything, but for a very small group of employees. So you can have HR business partner if you work in an hospital, you can have HR business partner nothing, HR business partner medicine, HR business partner lab, HR business partner pharmacy. You can have it. In fact, there are some people in St. Nicholas Hospital. There was a time that I began to say to my people that let us implement the HR business partnership model, whereby we identify a collection of departments and I say, okay, you are responsible for addressing these team's HR issues. I think we were not able to do it that fully well before I left the place. But the most important thing is understand these principles. As an HR manager, put some of these principles to test. By applying some of these things, what you do is you enhance the capacity of your people. And they give you enough time to be able to think about better things and strategic things as well. These roles and responsibilities demonstrate the multifaceted nature of HR in managing an organization's most valuable assets, its people. That's what HR roles and responsibilities is all about. What are the roles? What are the functions under it? So today, I encourage you, for those of you who are transiting into HR from other areas, why don't you pick a particular area that is most comfortable for you? For example, if you're an accountant by nature, the easiest place for you to begin to look at is compensation and benefits. Why? Because compensation and benefits, you do a part of it already where you are working, where you do the payroll processing and all those things. Why don't you pick that area that is most convenient for you now and begin to grow it up? Don't try to do everything at once. Just pick an area and grow it up. And if you're already in HR and you're already good with recruitment, if you're going to become a manager, you need to go beyond recruitment. Why don't you begin to delve into some other areas so that you can build a broad-based skills set? HR process management. HR process management refers to the systematic design, implementation, monitoring, and improvement of HR processes within an organization. It involves creating structured and efficient workflows. Please pay attention to workflows for HR functions to ensure that they are carried out effectively, consistently, and in alignment with the organization's objectives. Okay, let me stop at this point and ask, has any one of us seen or developed an SOP before? Let me just pause here a bit and hear. Is there anyone here who has either designed or developed or worked on an HR SOP? Anyone like that on this call? Anyone? Or you have seen an HR SOP? Anyone like that on this call? Sorry, this is not to embarrass anybody, but this is to see where it is, so it will help me to be able to. Go ahead.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
My name is Kayode, and I recently reviewed our SOPs, my organization's SOP. I, the compliance manager, and my boss, the HR manager.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes,
Mr. Kayode, I just need you to go a bit further. Yes, from your own understanding, sir, just what you do for the next few minutes. What is an SOP? What does an SOP look like? So that others can also hear from you.
Okay, so SOP is called standard operating procedure. Basically, the step-by-step of how our HR process is going to run. So for recruitment, we have the steps. Okay, how many people should be involved in our recruitment process? Okay, we have about 3 people that should be involved. So what are the steps in recruitment? We have that. In case something did not happen, what should we do? We have that in that one, but also we also have the performance management system also in the SOP. We have this is how the process we run. Before our process was run yearly, but when we reviewed it to the current status, which is quarterly. So that's what done. I also that but I also what was to review every 2 years. They did it. Why would I have to review? So we now have to, because that is not based on the system, the general practice. We are now matter from Abdul payroll. Right now, I'm doing exactly handling the payroll of organization. Now, what is the handling? Not entirely the top payroll processing. I do the scheduling. Before it was entirely different, I does everything entirely. So I do the SOP shows how the payroll system, the payroll system will be run in the region. So that among just because also of everything that we as our HR managing, what we and how it's run. So anybody can just pick up documents and then look at, okay, what is you guys actually following the best practices and the way it should be run. And by looking at our own current review, they're going to see that yes, we're actually following the way and just the way everything should be run. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. I like the fact that you walked us through what it is. SOPs simply are documents that states step by step how certain functions and roles are performed in an organization. So what I'm trying to do now is I want to show you something on my screen. It's just an SOP so that you would see what it looks like and you'll be able to, as it were, we'll be able to pick something, 1 or 2 things from there. 1 minute, please. It's on the cloud, in the cloud. So I'm working on it. Okay, I want to open the one on, there's an SOP on what the department will do. Let me switch screen. 1 minute, please. Where is it? Okay. Can you see my screen? Please, can you see what's on my screen?
Not too clear.
It's better now, right? I've made it bigger.
Yeah, it's better. It's clear now.
All right. Okay, so I just wanted to see. Clear. Now, it says the People and Culture Department. The SOP always has the code, SOPs-HR/02. Policies and procedures to be adopted by the People and Culture Department. So it means that if we're going to add a new policy or procedure in the department, we need to still go back to this document. Do you understand? And update this document. Let me show you some of this. It said the purpose of this document is to outline the key policies and procedures that should be adopted by the People and Culture Department within the company. These policies and procedures ensure consistency, fairness, and compliance with legal and ethical standards in HR practices. What is the scope of this SOP? Every SOP must have a scope. Said this standard operating procedure applies to the people and culture department and its personnel within the company. Now, what are the policies and procedures? Number one, what can you see on the screen? I need feedback from you. What can you see as number one on the screen?
Recruitment
and selection.
Okay. Then the second one is what? Onboarding and orientation, right?
Yes.
The third one is training and development. We have performance management, employee relations
and communication,
leave and attendance. Number 7, the last one here is what? Confidentiality and data protection.
Confidentiality and data protection.
Now, do you know that this particular document that I am showing you, okay, they will not go to other things there. Let me show you another, so that this is, for example, this is one on employee hiring process. So there's an SOP on what? Employee hiring process. And we say, what is the purpose of this SOP? The purpose of this document is to outline the standard operating procedure for the employee hiring process within the company. This SOP provides guidelines to ensure a systematic and efficient hiring process that attracts qualified candidates and support the organization's staffing needs. The scope, of course, applies to all individuals involved in the employee hiring process within the company, including the people and culture department, hiring managers, and relevant stakeholders. So everyone involved is what this SOP deals with. Then the employee hiring process. What is the first step in the process? The first step in the process is what? Job analysis and requisition. So the job analysis, what does it say? Conduct a thorough job analysis to identify job requirements, responsibilities, and qualifications. Then job requisition is initiate the job requisition process, clearly defining the need for a new employee and obtaining the necessary approvals. That means before you can come to me in HR, you as the hiring manager, you must have conducted a thorough analysis of the role, of course, with HR. Then you must have filled a requisition form that must have been approved by your own direct line manager, depending on how the organization is structured. And the form, of course, will be designed by HR, which you must have clearly defined the need for that new employee. It's either a replacement role or a new role that has been just created. Those are the things that will be done there. Then you go to the step 2, job posting and advertising. Do you understand? Then the step 3 takes you to candidate screening and selection. Then you go to 4, job offer and onboarding. Then 5, applicant communication. Then 6, documentation and record keeping. Do you understand? The moment you have put this in place, these are your processes, these are your procedures. Let me go back to my slide. Did I? 1 minute, please. Okay. Okay, we're back here. So when we talk about process management, your SOP is a critical tool that helps you. But see, key aspects of HR process management. The first aspect is what? Process design. How do you design a process? You identify HR processes. After identifying HR processes, you map process. You do process mapping. HR professionals map out each process, documenting the steps, the roles, the responsibilities, the inputs, and the outputs. If you see the SOP that I just showed you, is about 50 pages. thereabout, addressing different procedures in HR. And in each of them, when you go to the payroll preparation SOP, the payroll SOP, you begin to see specific roles, specific departments mentioned. Why? Because everyone needs to know that at this point, this is the role you need to play in this SOP. And it is something that every one of us needs to know. As a matter of fact, do you know that there's an SOP on employee personal file? What are the things that must be contained in the personal file you keep for every employee? There's an SOP on it. So if you move Mr. A away from the recruitment desk and you move him to the payroll desk, he or she doesn't need to keep asking 1 million questions. You know why? Because there are SOPs already designed. In some places, they call them desk book, and some call them reference book, whatever it is. In fact, now they are coming up with very good terminologies. You hear playbook. I don't know if you have seen some places they talk about the HR playbook, the marketing playbook, the procurement playbook. Everything is just to say, look, this is how we do our things here. Just follow these processes. You don't need to keep calling the person that has left your organization to keep explaining things to you. Why? Because there are documents that have been designed to provide those inputs. And it is something that is important and everyone needs to pay attention to. Then standardization. When you create standard operating procedures, what you have done is you have standardized processes. And that is why it is expedient. If you don't have it in your organization, please write it down. You must develop SOP for your department. Because what it does is it brings about standardization. It brings about that consistency in practice. If Mr. A does it and Mr. A is no longer in the organization, when Mr. B comes, Mr. B will follow the same steps. Yes, the quality of their decision making may be different, but the processes and the steps they follow are the same thing. That's the best way to standardize your HR process is to create your SOPs, which allows for consistency. Then, workflow automation. This is where technology integration comes in. We've talked about HR management systems, and this is where it comes in as it were. Then, of course, HR management systems, when you want to deploy the first time, it looks expensive, but in the long run, it's more efficient. It reduces manual entry, it minimizes paperwork, it speeds up your processes, leading to increased efficiency. And most times, when you talk about efficiency, the people that like to hear the word efficiency the most are accountants. Efficiency means we're saving money. Efficiency means anything that helps us to save money. So efficiency here, these things, when you reduce manual data entry, the number of people you need to do data entry is totally reduced. It minimizes paperwork, so the number of your paper consumption is gone. It speeds up your processes, so the number of people having to come and do overtime or come on weekends for work is reduced. Then it leads to increased efficiency, because see, when I have a working system, you can do that thing from the comfort of your house, of your home, and nobody is bothered around it. Then compliance and regulations. Whatever process you are developing for your HR must comply with labor law and regulations. For example, every offer letter you give must not in any way contradict the Labor Act. Let me even ask a question. How many of us know what the Labor Act position is concerning the annual leave? Let me pause here and ask. I guess these are actually the interesting parts of this conversation. The Labor Act, what does it say about annual leave? How many days does the Labor Act provision for annual leave for staff? Who wants to say something? Oh, our time is fast spent. We need to run. Ellen, Noble Ellen. 6 days. It says at least 6 days. So if you work in a place and your annual leave is 6 days, you can't take them to court. The law says at least 6 days. And that's one thing that a lot of us don't know. A lot of us say, how can they say my annual leave is 2 weeks? And when the law says it is 1 month, the law does not say it's 1 month. It was the Labor Act before the one that was repealed. Under the 1990 Act, that was, I think, 1 month. But this one says at least 6 days. It means that when I employ you into my organization, I say your annual leave is 6 days. You can't say I'm being unfair. That's what the law says. And that is one thing that all of us must be very familiar with, and you need to know that. Then data privacy. You know, a lot of us believe that HR, because we're HR and everybody's record is in our care, we can just go to it anyhow. You can't. I was talking to someone one time, and I said, oh, by the way, how old are you? And the person said, you know, we're talking casual, and the person said, you know my age now? I said, how? So my file is with you. I said, yes, your file is in HR. I do not have the right ethically to go to your file except I am doing something on it. So if I want to obtain information informally from you, I want to know some things about you, I cannot use my official access to your file to know things about you unofficially. The only reason I'll go to your file to go and check your address is because we have a letter for you and we need to dispatch it to your house, not because I want to come and visit you in your house. The only reason I'll go to your file to get your address is because probably you just had a baby, you just got married, or the person is sick, and we want to send some people from the office to go there. And that is the only reason I can go there. But because I want to just come and say, hey, hi, how are you doing? I am not obliged to do that ethically. And that is one thing you need to know. You need to know where your boundaries are. You need to know where you should stop. And that's where data privacy comes in. The fact that the data is within your reach does not mean you should abuse that access. Then, of course, process for performance measurement. HR process management involves defining KPIs to measure the effectiveness and efficiency of HR processes. So to measure your performance, you must have KPIs. Then continuous monitoring. Regularly monitor KPIs allows HR professionals to KPIs allows HR professionals to identify bottlenecks, areas of improvement, and trends in HR process performance. So you need to set KPIs for yourself to measure your performance. Continuous improvement, I talked about it earlier. This is a tool for quality service delivery. You must set up, put a system in place for continuous improvement for every lapse. We make errors, we make mistakes. When we identify those mistakes, why did that mistake happen? How did it happen? Then we set processes in place to make sure that it doesn't repeat itself. That's why if you have a quality assurance department or unit in your organization, they are mostly a pain in your neck. Why are they always pains in your neck? Because they just ask you, why did that happen? Okay, where's your quality improvement initiative? Just like our continuous improvement plan, and just like these people are troubling us. No, they just want to be sure that it does not happen again. Then training and communication. What this does is you need to put a process in place for training. For example, in my HR team, then we used to have a weekly meeting, Mondays. And what we do is to look at what we did the previous week and what we are doing this week and what goals are we setting. And we also use the opportunity for a member of the team to train the members of the team on a particular topic or subject that has to do with what we are doing. Then, of course, there must be clear and effective communication. This is critical for ensuring that employees are aware of HR procedures, policies, and changes in process. For every change in policy or process, you must actually communicate, and where the need is required, train people. Then flexibility and adaptability. Your processes must be flexible and easily adaptable. You must have seen people talking about agile HR. Agility talks about responsiveness and flexibility. Your ability to adapt to your environment, your ability to adapt to technological changes, your ability to adapt to economic changes, and your processes must also build that in as well. And we say effective HR process management contributes to the overall efficiency of HR operations, enhances employee experience, and ensures that HR function align with the organization's strategic objectives. Those are the talked about. So we need to go back and begin to review things For example, we've had to review our recruitment processes. We've had to review salaries. In fact, one of the things that I am good at anywhere I've worked is to say, why are people leaving us? And by the time I go back to exit interview data, I realize that people are leaving us because our pay is not competitive as it were. Then the next thing we begin to say is, what can we do to make us a bit competitive? So I've had to champion salary reviews in more than 2 places. And in times when people say it's not possible, we've achieved it. And it's very simple. Bring your facts, bring your information and your ability to convince the management to see these are the facts. These are the information we gather from outside. These are the facts within. And because of that, for us to be able to move to where we're going to, this is where we're going to. So you must be given to research. You must be given to paying attention to news. What is happening in the news? Oh, the government just introduced 25,000 naira extra for government workers for the next 6 months. What is the implication for the cost of living for my staff? Because for every landlord that hears that they've added 25,000 naira, suddenly house rent begins to skyrocket. And they don't want to know that not everybody works for government. Now, those are some of the things that HR needs to begin to now think that, okay, this announcement by the government has created an unfavorable environment for my people. So how do we go about that? HR outsourcing services. What is outsourcing? Let's just go straight so that we see. HR outsourcing involves contracting external service providers or vendors to manage specific HR functions or processes. A lot of us have our recruitment outsourced. For some, they may say, oh, it's not everything, but the executive recruitment is outsourced. And once your executive recruitment is outsourced, the major function is outsourced because that's the most expensive part of your recruitment exercise. Outsourcing simply involves contracting some functions in your HR department or the entire, we'll get when you do the entire outsourcing as well. These vendors are specialized in HR services and take over the responsibility for executing particular HR tasks on behalf of the organization. And what that means is, if I give you my recruitment, an outsourced service to me, handling my recruitment process, all I want is the end product of it. And the end product of it is, give me my staff when I want it. Then key aspects of HR outsourcing include scope of services. What does that mean? Organizations can decide that we want to outsource our recruitment only. So when we are bringing a company to outsource that function to, the contract, the SLA, service level agreement, states clearly that the scope of this contract is to handle recruitment. And for some, they say, look, the scope of this outsourced contract is to handle our entire HR function. Anyone that is in-house handling HR for us is not our direct staff, it's your staff, but it's working for us and was work in our best interest. So it defines the scope. Benefits. Why do people outsource? It is believed to be cheaper. It is believed that the company you're outsourcing, that you are giving the thing to, has the expertise, and it helps to focus on core competencies. But from experience, I have come to realize that, as it were, outsourcing can be more expensive. The company you are bringing in may be less experienced than even the people you have in-house, and they may not have as much competence as the people you have in-house. So you need to be deliberate in this. Have you checked in-house? The skill sets you think these people are bringing, are you sure nobody has it in-house? And those are some of the things. But there are times that we outsource, not because we can't do that thing internally, but because our team is already stretched thin. So for different reasons, what are the challenges? When you outsource, you lose control, and your data security is questionable, because the information you have released to those people, the day you terminate that contract, you can't retrieve all those information from them. Then types of HR outsourcing, we have business process outsourcing, we have professional employer outsourcing. Business process outsourcing is a specific one. Then professional employer is the one that comes in and takes over the entire function for you and runs the function effectively for you. Shared services, we talked about this earlier, is simply they are still your employees, but they have HR functions centralized in a particular place where we call shared service center. Now, for multinationals, they have it. I know for flour mills, the L&D team is somewhere around Alausa, based on what I heard, is there. So all L&D functions are centrally coordinated from there. And you realize that for some organizations, their recruitment function center, or that the shared service for recruitment is in South Africa. So all the recruitment processes are coordinated centrally from South Africa. So shared services in HR involve centralizing HR functions or creating a shared service center within the organization. In this model, HR activities are consolidated into one or more centralized units, enabling more efficient and standardized HR service delivery across the organization. Key aspects of it is centralization. Services are consolidated into shared service centers, often referred to HR Shared Services Center, where specialists manage specific HR functions. Benefits, efficiency, cost savings, enhanced service quality. That's true, because everybody that sits in a particular center or location, they are professionals in what they do. So when one person lacks some information, the other person is able to provide it. What are the challenges? Initial investment and change management. Because you need to, for example, if you have 20 locations in Nigeria and you have recruitment specialists in those 20 locations, and you say, you know what, I want all my recruitment specialists to be in one location. The initial investment involved in bringing all of them to location, let's say you bring them to Abuja, and the cost of establishing that center, one. Number two, the cost of having to convince them to live wherever they are and come and operate from Abuja. Those are some of the challenges you would face. The scope of shared service, this can encompass a wide range of HR functions, including employee inquiries and benefits. You can centralize any HR function, including payroll. Both HR outsourcing and shared services offer organizations opportunities to optimize HR functions. The choice between the two depends on the organization's specific needs, resources, and strategic goals. Some organizations may opt for a combination of both approaches to meet their HR recruitments efficiently. Don't forget, outsourcing is time-bound, but your shared services can stay for as long as your organization survives. But what you go for will be determined by the scope of your business operations and where you are. If you operate in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 10 countries, for example, you may need to begin to look at it and may want to go for your shared services to say all payroll issues are handled in the US, all recruitment functions are handled in Nigeria, all training functions are handled in South Africa. So when you are focusing on those locations, you know what you are expecting from those locations. Service quality, we've talked about this. HR service quality refers to the level of excellence in which HR services are delivered to employees within an organization. Now, levels of excellence, you need to pay attention to it. And what are the indicators of excellence? Almost near zero margin of error. The employee satisfaction rating is high. Your net promoter score is very, very high, very, very good. Then achievement of set objectives is high as well. Those are some of the basic indicators of excellence. So here we're saying that service quality refers to the level of excellence in which HR services are delivered to employees within an organization. Ensuring high HR service quality is crucial because it directly impacts employee satisfaction, engagement, and overall organizational effectiveness. When the employees are not satisfied, the level of engagement drops. And when the employees don't feel really engaged, the organization cannot really be effective because people that are not satisfied can never deliver at their best. So indicators of HR service quality. Number one, employee-centric approach. Everything you do must be focused. They must have an employee-centered approach. It must be responsive. Oh, people start complaining that things are becoming expensive. It's becoming difficult for them to come to work. And you say you don't care. After all, they are paid their salary. No. Accuracy and consistency. Whatever we are doing must be accurate and must be consistent. Don't treat people in finance differently from the way you treat people from operations. Don't treat the doctor specially from the way you treat the nurses. There must be that consistency in how you do it. There must be it must be accessible, it must be transparent. You must be professional. People don't come to you and say, are you okay? You're not even happy that we're even listening to you in HR. Some HR people have become tormentors. People do the sign of the cross before they enter your HR department. Why? Then continuous improvement for HR service quality. For every lapse you identify, for every gap you identify, you must continuously improve. Service level agreements, this comes up a lot in dealing with outsourced services. You have your service level agreements and you have your expectations of them. You must establish a very sound, effective feedback mechanism. How do you get feedback from people? Technology and self-service. See, when you implement your technology and your technology transfers a level of control to the people, it helps you a lot. For example, you are typing people's date of birth and you mistakenly type 18th June instead of 18th July. See, the people feel like, no, what have you done? But when the people are the one imputing it, they do it accurately. And when they make errors, most times they are not able to hold HR accountable because they are the ones that did it. Then employee engagement. You must come up with ideas on how to effectively engage your employees. Then whatever you are doing must align with organizational goals. Someone is distracting the meeting. Who is that? Okay, then overall, HR service HR service quality delivery is a holistic approach to HR service delivery that prioritizes the employee experience. Please pay attention to it. The employees determine the quality of your service delivery to them. So HR service quality focuses on how to prioritize that experience for them. And that experience, you can only prioritize it and you can only achieve it when you engage them. By focusing on service quality, organizations can create a positive work environment, enhance employee engagement, and ultimately contribute to their overall success. I guess one of these days we will do a whole session on employee engagement. Because we talk a lot about employee engagement, but do we really understand what it is? Okay, delivery models. HR delivery models are various approaches and structures that organizations can adopt to manage their HR functions. You know, we've talked about it at the beginning, briefly, that we have the centralized model, we have the decentralized model, and we have the hybrid model. What is centralized model? All HR functions and responsibilities are managed by a single central department, HR department or team. This promotes consistency and standardization of HR processes and policies across the entire organization. It is often more efficient for organizations with a single geographic location or a limited number of business units. Single geographic location is you are operating only from Nigeria. Especially effective for managing compliance and ensuring that HR practices align with organizational goals. That is the centralized model. That is what most Nigerian businesses operate. Decentralized HR delivery model. HR functions are distributed across different departments, business units, or geographic locations within the organization. For example, in MTN, they have HR business partners for different teams. I said that earlier. So you realize that the HR functions have been decentralized. Yes, there's a point where all of those people handling HR at those levels will come together. But day-to-day operations of HR, making decisions about HR, is decentralized. Each department or business unit will have its HR staff responsible for HR activities specific to that unit. That's where you have the HR business partner. It can provide greater flexibility and customization to meet the unique needs of the organization. However, it may lead to variations in HR practices and policies across the organization, requiring strong coordination and oversight. Because what an HR business partner in finance is doing and how he goes about it may be different from how the HR business partner in operations does his things. There may be variations. So this requires a very strong coordination at the center. Then what is the hybrid? The hybrid model is a combination of both. A hybrid model combines elements of both centralized and decentralized structures. You have companies that, although their HR department is in Lagos, somehow they have someone in Abuja handling HR functions who reports directly back to the person in Lagos. Some HR function may be managed centrally for consistency and efficiency, while other functions are handled at the departmental business unit level to address specific needs. For example, you can have your HR department centralized while you have L&D people assigned to various things. Why? Because at that point, the training needs of nurses are different from the training needs of doctors. And those are different from the training needs of accountants. But there's a structure that all of them are expected to operate within. But how they also go about their trainings may not be the same, but it will not in any way impact negatively on your HR practice. This model allows organizations to strike a balance between standardization and customization. Like what I said, the way you deliver trainings to doctors will be different from the way you deliver the same training to finance people. So it allows for standardization in process, but customization in implementation. Then you have this shared services HR delivery. HR functions are consolidated into a separate shared services center. This center serves as a dedicated HR hub that provides services to different parts of the organization. This can lead to increased efficiency and cost savings by reducing duplication of efforts and centralizing HR expertise. Often used for transactional HR activities like payroll processing, benefits administration, and HR inquiries. Why? Because all I need to process payroll is to say, oh, give me your monthly variations from your various locations. The moment we receive it centrally, everybody's name is already in the central database. We adjust what we need to adjust, then PAM, we process at once. So you see, this has a lot to do with payroll and benefit administration. Then inquiries, you want to make inquiries about openings, you want to make inquiries about anything HR, that can be done. Then you have the co-sourcing HR delivery model. This involves a partnership between an organization and an external HR service provider. External provider collaborates with the internal HR team to deliver HR services. So they are like consultants to your HR team. They are not taking your functions away, but it's a collaboration. So we know that the external source has a skill set that probably the one internally don't have. So when we bring them in, it becomes complementary. This is often used for specialized HR functions or projects such as executive recruitment or HR technology implementation. Then outsourcing HR delivery model. Here, organizations contract with external HR service providers to handle specific HR functions or all HR functions. This is under we've talked about outsourcing. So this is actually still talking about the outsourcing. It can lead to cost savings and access to specialized HR expertise. Common HR functions outsourced include payroll, benefit administration, recruitment. Some are beginning to even outsource the learning and development functions. But if there's any function you cannot outsource, you cannot outsource your employee relations. You can't. You can't outsource it. And your analytics, as it were, how to centralize your analytics, you may not also be able to outsource it because the people you outsourced to, by the time they give you your feedback, you still need to be able to now put everything together from different stakeholders and be able to make an informed decision. And these outsourcing are not perpetual. It gets to a point based on data available to you, you realize that we have a need for outsourcing. Then you terminate that contract at that point. Each HR delivery model has its own advantages and considerations. And organizations choose the model that aligns best with their size, structure, strategic goals, and resources. The choice may evolve, that's what I just said, as organizations grow or adapt to changing circumstances, emphasizing the importance of flexibility in HR service delivery models. I said that earlier that, see, you may start with outsourcing model now, then in the next 2 years, you just realize that, you know what, we've outgrown this. We don't need these people again because we built internal capacity to do it and we have the financial strength to cater to it. Most times people outsource because they feel it's cheaper. Or some outsource because they feel they don't have the internal capacity. So while you are building internal capacity, you let someone from outside take responsibility for that function. And that is where this class ends today. But at this point, I need you to ask your questions. And the way your questions should come in is, we've talked about these things. What we talked about today is very practical. And I'll say to you straightforward so that you will be able to you'll be able to know how to go about it very well. If you truly want to practice HR and succeed in HR, you need to understand today. Because today is the foundation of HR practice. That's why I deliberately put unlocking the HR practice treasures. Because you need to be able to understand what kind of model works for you, how to structure your HR team. I could remember then when I was in St. Nicholas Hospital, when I structured my HR team, I gave someone, I gave someone strategy and analytics. I deliberately gave the person, of course, the strategy, responsibility for strategy resides with me. But I gave the person, and the person was my analytics person. So all the information in our HR practice lands on the person's table, and it analyzes it, it does the dashboard, it does the analytics and pushes it to me. And we sit down together and say, you know what, guy, from this trend that we are seeing, what do you think? And this was a person I could call 12 midnight. In those days, I would call him Sunday morning. I say, guy, I just thought about something. What do you think? Oh, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? Why? So I gave that role to that person because of the strategic nature of what the person is to do for me. And it should interest you to know that by the time I was leaving that system, that was the person that succeeded me. Because at that point, I was pouring everything I knew and I was doing into this person. And this person was using his skill to enhance my decision making. So it just became a natural thing for him to transit into taking up my role when I was leaving. Because he already understood how I was doing my things and we could think. So if you truly want to do HR and do it well, you must understand this week's class very well, because other HR practices would actually draw strength when you have a very strong system and your role definitions are very clear. So question from any one of us? Questions?
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone on the call. So I actually have a comment and also a question. When you were speaking about the HR SOP, I was trying to consider what it means. But later on, when you said different organizations are coming up with different terms to qualify the same thing, then it took me back memory lane, what I was doing last week when my boss told me to develop the SOM. So from your explanation, I got to know that the SOP is the same as SOM. So since last week, I've been on it, gave me a template, and I must say it's not something that is easy because you need to brainstorm. You need to also ensure that the grammar you are putting in there is correct. You are putting in the step by step. procedure and all of that. So I think the benefits I saw there is that it helps in succession planning. In a situation whereby an expert in that department is leaving, anybody coming to take up that position already knows the standard, the procedure, the processes they are supposed to take.
Exactly.
So I think it's very efficient that every department in an organization has that. Then my question is about, okay, so you said, because I'm planning to transition into the HR space. So you said in that case, you should look at what you are doing presently and choose one of the sections of the HR
Whether as a
career that.
generalist, as a specialist, yes.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so for example, someone who likes speaking with people and has great interpersonal relationship wants to go into recruitment, for example. When applying, most times you will see HR officer, you see HR assistant, and all of that. I hope it would be that you just specialize on, just wait until you see recruitment specialist or recruitment officer, or can you just apply also to other roles, or do you just wait for that one that speaks to what you are doing presently? What do you advise, sir?
Okay, thank you very much. This is the idea, right? You will never see, you will hardly see entry level roles asking for specialists. When they begin to talk about specialists, right, it's because they know that when you come in, you should take the burden of whoever the manager there is and be able to hit the ground running. I said, now that you are transiting into HR, I said start from that part of HR that connects easily with what you are doing at the moment. If you are a people person, there are two major parts of HR that comes in naturally to you. Number one, the employee relations side of HR. Because you'll be engaging with people. You'll see people that are angry, visibly angry, coming at you. And your ability to diffuse the tension and work them through employee relations. Then in recruitment, if you are the kind of person that is easily irritable, when you call some candidates at times, the response they will give to you. Let me tell you something. When responses began to come in for this program, when you people began to register, some people put in wrong email addresses. And we took our time to call them on phone. You can't imagine some responses that we got. Very embarrassing, very insulting, but of course, we took it, and eventually they now realize that, oh, I'm sorry. By the time they now get to know why you are calling them. So if you are a people person, recruitment connects and employee relations. However, we're taking you through this so that you can have a fair grounding in all practice areas in HR, all functional areas of HR. So most times you will see HR associates, you see HR assistant, you see HR executive, you see HR officer. Different organizations have different terminologies for their entry-level HR and different levels of HR. The last place I worked, before my designation was eventually changed, I was employed as an HR manager. But my level was a director's level. But in the organization, that was the title they had for their HR. It was when I came in that the CEO now began to say, okay, you know what, now we need to now do the proper redesignation. Everybody that's at this level, what can we do and all that? So my encouragement to you is start from the part of it that connects directly with what you are doing now, but have a fair understanding about all the practice areas. Because when you go for interviews, for HR officer, for example, we will just ask you few questions across different practice areas in HR. Most times when you go for HR officer roles, they hardly ask you questions around performance appraisal or performance management. Because it is believed that, okay, at this level, you are just getting exposed to HR, so you just have the basic HR experience. It's when you begin to get to a level where you are coming in as a supervisor, at a supervisory level, where we begin to think that, you know what, you should be able to do some things and take some burdens off me. That's when you begin to look for specific skill set. But the truth is, all these things I'm even talking about, in 1 month, if you are serious, you can learn and get really grounded, have a very strong understanding of at least 3 functional areas in HR very well. See, I was at the park this morning when I went for sports, and I went to the guy that sells book for me. I saw a personality testing method during the week, and I took the test. They call it Ikigai. And when I saw it, I was not like, oh, I know about disc analysis. I know about Gallup's strength. I know about a couple of phones. This one, I just saw it during the week. I saw it on Tuesday. I took the test and I began to do a documentation. I began to write about Ikigai. And I got to the guy that sells book for me. And the first book I saw when I got to him was a book on Ikigai. And I said, look, I must buy this thing. And the guy asked me, you do a lot. How do you get time to study, to read? You make time for whatever is important to you. If you truly want to survive in this HR field, you must be willing to invest in your own education. And your education is in watching YouTube. Stop watching YouTube shorts. Start watching 30 minutes, 1 hour trainings on HR on YouTube. Then when you ask questions, the BRT consult is there to support you. We ask your questions, even when it's not in class. Some of you have been calling us about some challenges you have at work, about decisions you want to make at work, and we've advised pro bono. We are willing to do that, but trust me, you need to invest a lot into yourself. But you can learn. Some people will learn HR in 1 year and still not be good, and some will learn it in 3 months and they become very good. It's how much attention you pay to it and how much you are willing to invest. So when you see an HR role, apply, even when your strength is in recruitment. The reason is there's nowhere recruitment is not needed. So if there's any first skill you want to build your recruitment skills. Build your recruitment skills. It's a major catch. Recruitment is a major problem in organizations today. Let me just be very real with you. Most organizations, they recruit, but they have problems with their recruitment. That's why you see 2 people are employed on the same role and they are offered different salaries. And they are coming to do the same job. And my question is, why would you give 2 different salaries to 2 people coming to do the same role? If the person is too good for that role, then give the person a higher role. So don't call the person an HR officer, call the person HR supervisor. So that the other person you are employing as HR officer, when the person comes in, the person knows that this person is an HR officer and is any more than me. It creates tension. And that's what we have in most of our organizations. There are people carrying the same title, but they have different salaries. That's one of the things we need to sort out. So, yes, you need to develop yourself. And thank you on your contribution about the SOPs. But it's interesting. Every one of you must begin to learn. If you know how to develop SOPs, the day you know how to develop HR SOPs very well, you are mature to become an HR manager. You know why? Because those SOPs you have developed are HR processes and procedures that are in your head. And when you are invited for an interview, those are the things you will be explaining to them. Oh, how do you plan for performance management? And you begin to walk them through from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. Those are the confirmations that, oh, you know what to do when you are put into the situation. So I encourage you to please get to know more about HR SOPs. And you can engage with us after this class. We will always be willing and available to talk to you. Thank you. Any other person?
Okay, hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kayode, for this class. It has been very, very informative. Quick one, regarding the performance stuff you talked about. Okay, we have a KPI system. I met it when I came on board, and it wasn't developed by the supervisors of different departments. It was developed by the CEO, and it was something he shared with the HR with me. Then I shared it with the various departments on that's the key the criteria that we are using for this key performance for the appraisers. Now, what I want to ask is that the right thing, or should I leave it for the supervisor to create the metrics or create the template on how each our department and team members are to be appraised? That's my question. Yes, that's my first
Thank
question.
you. Okay.
Yes, then the second
Go ahead.
All right, so with everything you've explained, I am an HRO generalist. That's what it is. I'm the only person handling all the HRO aspects in my department, in the organization where I work. It's a hospital and it's still coming up. So I'm trying the only person handling all HROs and administrative roles. And most times it can be very overwhelming and stuff like that. So this is the first time I got to hear about the SOPs for HRO. So if it's something I want to start working on, how do I go about it for this HRO process? Because I know it's going to take a lot of time and I have to focus on the different key aspects that are important at this point in time for me to create the process. So how do I go about that? What should be my first step if I want to work on creating SOPs?
All right. Thank you. That's Susan, I assume.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. First things first, performance management. Whose responsibility is it? Let us define everybody's responsibility, right? What is the responsibility of the management in performance management? To provide strategic directions, establish the strategic objectives. That's the only role of the management. Then the management also sets the KPI for line managers or for managers. It depends on how your organization is structured, right? If your organization is a multi-layered, operates a multi-layered structure, it means that the MD or the CEO, whatever the title is, would define and design the performance, the KPIs for the people that report to him or her. And those will take their own and define for the people reporting to them, and it is cascaded down. Now, it is absurd, it is strange, and it is wrong for an MD to sit in his office and establish KPIs for everybody. Now, it means the MD, number one, is not busy doing things that are more meaningful. Then number two, the MD is putting his or her own head, thinking he's the one that will be doing that job. Because when you set your strategic objectives and you extract the KPIs for people that operate at the management, what they do is they sit down with their own managers and they see their own KPIs and extract the part of their KPIs that applies to manager A, extract the part that applies to manager B. For example, when you set KPI for me as director of HR, it's going to be an overbearing or overriding KPI that speaks to every functional aspect of HR. Then I come to the next level after me, and I realize that I have a manager in charge of talent management. I have a manager in charge of benefits. I have a manager in charge of employee relations and the likes. Then whatever my boss has given to me as my own KPIs, I will extract the part that has to do with the guy in charge of recruitment and give it to the person as KPI for the person. Don't forget that members of your team, when you combine all their KPIs should sum up to your own KPI, to your own overall KPIs. Because every member of your team is working for you. All of them are working for you. You are working for the person directly above you. That person is working for the person directly above him or her. And that's how it works. That is why you cannot have a manager perform excellently well and people reporting to the manager perform very poorly. It's not possible. It simply means that performance management process is faulty. So your MD is supposed to do it for people reporting to her. Then people reporting to her are supposed to now sit down with people reporting to them and design it. In that way, people will own the process. If people don't own the process, people will not be committed to it. And it is one thing that we need to know. We have seen MDs designing KPIs for people, and you realize that people don't achieve them. So management, what the management does is to establish strategic objectives and set an overall KPI. What HR does is to take what has been designed overall and split it, because normally, don't forget that HR is a management function. So in extracting KPIs for people reporting to the MD, HR will have been involved to distill it for different people. Then when those people now want to take it to their own level, At every point in time, as it goes down, HR is involved. And HR is involved because as the management staff wants to distill it down to people reporting to him, HR sits to document. So, okay, this is what you have agreed as your performance for this period. HR keeps a record of it. So when the performance evaluation exercise is going to be done, that is what HR is using as a guide to say, no, this was what was established, agreed, and this is the reality. Then you are able to measure, because the person that determines the performance level, overall performance level, is HR. Then what is the role of line managers? Line managers take ownership of these KPIs at the departmental level and get the buy-in of members of their team, and they begin to run with it. So what your manager has done or MD has done, as good as it may seem, is wrong, because it won't get everybody's buy-in, and if everybody's buy-in is not in it, it's not going to fly. That's the first one. And the second one is, how do you go about developing SOPs for your hospital? You see, on this call, we have a couple of people who have been doing. We have a couple of people on this call who are currently working in some of the leading hospitals, private hospitals in Nigeria. And I know that at some point, we're going to create maybe we need to begin to look at creating a database of what every one of us do and where we work. And the reason we did not share some data with you is for data privacy. But we would maybe during the course of the week, we would design a simple form. It will just be your name, where you work, and what you do there only. So if you all agree, then we can drop it on the general group where you can see, oh, this person works in a hospital. Oh, this person, I can actually connect with this person. And by connecting with the person, you begin to brainstorm on how to go about things. However, before that happens, Susan, let's talk after the class. But one thing you also need to know is every one of us can also do a bit of reading online. But like Fumi said, developing SOPs can be very tasking. It will be very tasking because SOP simply means that you look at every role in your department and you look at every function performed by that role. And for each function, you develop processes for them. So if a role performs 10 functions, for the 10 functions, you develop processes for them. Those processes are your SOPs. That's why they are called standard operating procedures. It means that to perform this particular function, these are the procedures, these are the processes you must follow. But if I've been privileged to have worked in places where we went for international accreditation, at least 2 places, and where we had to do all these things from ground up. So the first place was when I was exposed to a very tedious one, and I realized that if you're going for any international accreditation, ISO and the likes, your organization must have SOP. So we work around that, Susan. Susan, and since you work in an hospital, beyond HR SOPs, there are other SOPs that are very important. We'll talk about it. If you need support for SOPs development, please reach out to us. We will connect you with 1 or 2 people who operate within the same industry with you to be able to guide you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other question? Mrs.
The attendance have not been shared yet.
Sorry. That particular one not being shared is my fault. Let me just drop it for them now. I think that's okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mr. K. Do I have permission to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you so much. All right, my question is this, still relating with this SOP. I remember being in an interview for head of HR and operations, and their questions were more targeted to this SOP thing. All right, so then their question was just hammering around the whole thing. They wanted to be very sure what you're coming to do. Didn't even ask much. So now, aside from that, there is this company that I know and their SOP was actually outsourced. So I saw the document, and it was actually outsourced to a consulting or a consulting firm, basically, into the HR space. So as a professional, will you advise that an SOP for an organization be developed from an outside? Because what I now later observed is like everybody now just have it like a document. Now, most people did not go through it to really understand that this is like a driver now that guides what we should be doing. So some person just have it as a document. The normal Nigerians, like, it's very easy to collect the document and then keep it aside. So it got to a point that most people do not even understand the SOP as it speaks to their various operations and function in the system. So when you now talk about maybe SOP, they'll now run and carry, like, you want to do expo, quickly just glance through it. Okay, this was this. They really don't understand what this is all about. And I don't know, to an extent, I feel that there should be a caveat to it. Like, SOP is supposed to be developed from an outside body, like a consultant, be outsourced and then bring to a company, or a company are supposed to have like a team, a strategic team in the HR, or maybe as the case may be, to find to, because they understand this business more better. That is one. And secondly, how best do you think you're going to advise a professional? Let's say you've been hired to work in a system where there is no HR department before, and they are bringing you in and say, okay, come and start the HR department for us as an organization. I know it's a whole lot of work. It's a whole lot of work. And how best are you going to advise that from the professional angle? So these are just the two questions for now. Thank you very much.
Okay. From scratch. Okay. I'm sorry. I've dropped the attendance link on the group leads platform. Speak and share with your team members. Okay. Let me also send, maybe for this, because I'll send it from the central channel so everybody sees it on the central group. 1 minute, I would respond to your question. Okay, so I'll drop that. Okay, the first one is best practice for HR SOP development. People outsource. We talked about outsourcing earlier. People outsource because they don't have, majorly because they don't have internal capacity to do certain things. Where capacity exists, then outsourcing will be unnecessarily wasting money. Now, and the people who developed the SOP, the company that it was outsourced to, is not supposed to develop the SOPs in isolation. There's supposed to be that engagement with managers, engagement with teams, because what you are supposed to be converting into a document are the practices, current practice or practices in that organization. SOPs are simply ways of doing things. This is how we do our things. So they are practices. So, but I came to realize that most of them go for consultants, and whatever the consultants turn out, eventually they don't end up using because it doesn't benefit them. So that is why people will never take ownership of it. It's a change management process, right? When people feel like they are part of the SOP's development process, they want to own it. And the moment they own it, what you want to achieve is achieved. So I would say that the best method is involving the people that will be using the SOP in the process. Even if you're a manager, you must involve the people. See, I have some people on this call that when we did the HR SOP, when I was at St. Nicholas Hospital, the first time I did it, I just did it hush because people that are coming to us, the accreditation people are coming for our baseline assessment, and they needed to find something. That was barely a few months after I joined the organization. The moment those ones are gone and we're able to do whatever we're doing, the SOPs, as they were being developed, were dropped for every member of the team for their input. And it took us about 6 months to 1 year. We kept going back and forth amongst ourselves. Then our quality assurance team will come to say, what alpha? We gave them what we have. And we kept at it. And before you know it, every member of the team became like an embodiment of the SOP, especially the one that has to do what you are doing. You know why? Because they were involved in the process. So involving people in the process makes them take ownership. So it's not just about bringing a very lovely document. It's about getting them to have that sense of ownership, and you go about it. That's the first one. The second question, how to develop an HR department from the scratch. I have had to find myself in several situations having to develop from the scratch, but no two organizations are ever the same. Yeah, there are some organizations, they want it by mouth, they are not willing to commit to it. So you will end up frustrated. But let's say you want to, the system, the environment is ripe, you want to establish HR from the scratch. The first thing you need to do is to conduct an audit. Conduct a process audit. When you conduct an audit, what are you trying to find out? What are the current practices? What are the things on ground? What are the things not on ground? Then from there, you'll be able to know what to do. Then after your audit findings, you'll be able to know what is the strategic plan, or what are the strategic objectives of the organization at the time you are coming in. Then the strategic objectives, what are the current or available policies on ground in the organization? Because you are not going to develop things that you think are just lovely. Whatever you are developing should connect to some things that are already at work in the organization. Then once you already have identified what the strategic objectives are, or if they have a strategic plan for a period of maybe 5 years where you can pick from, then you begin to look at the strategic objectives as it speaks to people, because your function is about people. And as it speaks to people, you begin to look at it and you begin to like, okay, from this, we need to have this. You don't need to develop all HR policies at a go. You begin to identify them and which ones are most critical at this point that we need immediately. Develop the ones you need immediately, develop SOPs around and begin to activate them. Then come up with an implementation plan, whether you call it project implementation plan, whatever you want to call it. Set timelines for and milestones. This number of policies and SOPs will be developed within the first 1 month. That's why you need work plans. When you are going in there, develop a work plan. Everywhere I work, I always develop a 100-day work plan. I always do that. And after identifying the major things I need to do, I do a work plan for myself that by this time, this should have been achieved. By this time, it should have been achieved. Then you begin to do that. Then when you have identified the gaps, do your work plan. Your work plan becomes your roadmap to having a fully functional HR department. That roadmap is what guides you. You say, okay, step 1, I need to develop an organogram, a structure for my HR department. Based on the number of people we have in this organization, there used to be the best model for HR used to be, some people will tell you it's ratio 1 to 25. 1 HR professional for every 25 staff. Then for some, they get to a place, they say, okay, you can still manage ratio 1 to 50. So if you do ratio 1 to 50 in an organization where you have 200 people, that means you need at least 4 people in your HR team to manage that place very well, because 200 people, only you at once, they will drive you nuts. So those are the things that once you develop your work plan, you just begin to implement them one after the other. But most importantly, develop your policies. Your policies are not your practices. So you need to now develop SOPs so that as you bring people into your team, you don't need to always sit them down every now and then. Your SOPs, you bring people into your team, give them the SOP to read, to say, okay, you are responsible for A, B, C, D. These are the SOPs on A, B, C, D. So by reading it, the person is able to free you some other time to be able to do some other meaningful things. And by the time you do that, you begin to put things together. At the end of like 6 months, you should have a clear and visible structure for your HR department with documents that says what is to be done, and you can always keep improving on it and moving on from there. For me, that's the best way to do a practical thing. But what most people will do is they go and look for a body of policies and begin to develop policies and say, oh, we have policies. But the truth is, are those policies really, really, really applicable and relevant to what you are doing? I hope that answers your question satisfactorily. Any other question before we Please, have you seen the attendance? You people filling the attendance now.
Yes, we have. Thank you.
All right. Okay. I can see 34 submissions already. All right. Any other question finally before you get another case study? I have told you that you will be getting weekly case studies, and the idea really is the case for those who did the case study. The case study helped you to understand what was taught last week Saturday better. So the case study you are getting today is also to build on what we have talked about today and what you read during the week. So it's supposed to make you better, to give you better understanding about what we are discussing about. And the most important thing is you should be able to hit the ground running. If you, beyond your group discussion, take the case studies and study them on your own. It will give you and begin to probe yourself. Go back to the textbook that speaks about what the case study is around. Go back to the lecture, recording of the lecture, and just see how it is. The idea behind it is to make you gain practical experience. Case studies are real life problems that have been solved by some people. So by looking through them and solving them in your mind and documenting it, you've been able to solve a real life problem. And by the time you find yourself in a work environment, it will be able to work for you. Thank you. If there's no other question, I believe that it is good we call it a day here. Please,
sir,
I encourage. Please go ahead, sir.
I don't know if I'm permitted to ask this here. It's just respect to the material. I was thinking, even if it's just a PDF file, this slide, if it's okay anyway, if it's just okay by you, we could have to just, when we're listening to the voice, the recording, we can also have a thing to tag along with the whole learning. You really have done a great job for us. If it's okay, sir, but then if it's not okay, we will understand, sir.
Myself and my bosses will consider that and get back to you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. But we're also considering also putting all the video recordings in a centralized place where you can also see the video recordings without any fear of losing it. So hopefully one of these very soon we'll upload everything on YouTube, in a YouTube channel, but we're not going to make it maybe public. We'll share the link with you and let's see how we take it up from there. But we'll consider that and get back to you during the course of the week. Thank you, sir. So if you have any question and you cannot ask the question here, buzz me privately or buzz any of the admins. Check the group or the channel. Anyone that is an admin on those platforms, buzz any one of us privately and we will surely reach out to you. But please, you are into HR or you are working and you have HR-related challenges at work, reach out to us. We're willing and ready to support you. Our joy is in the fact that you do well at work and you are a good representation of representative of the profession. So feel free to reach out to us and we really appreciate this time with you. Thank you very much. And have a blessed week. You get your case study in the next few minutes. All right. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir.
For the class. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. We enjoyed the class.
Thank you, sir, for the class.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Kayode. Personally,
you're welcome. Oga Shegu that has abandoned me.
Now, Oga, I will reach out to you, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.